This is the story of the Witch Tree of Bretforton. There are villages in England that history seems to forget, not because they were unimportant, but because they preferred it that way. Bretforton is one of them. Set on the edge of the Vale of Evesham, surrounded by stubborn hedgerows and weather-worn orchards, Bretforton sits quiet. The kind of quiet that has roots, the kind that keeps its stories close. And in Bretforton, they still do not speak of the tree. But there was a time, long ago, when the whole village gathered beneath it. It was in the years after the first Great Plague. Whether it was the return of pestilence or another sickness entirely, no one could say. The dates were not recorded. But the memory lingered. The death came quickly, a cough in the morning, cold skin by night. At first, they thought it was something ordinary, too much ale, a bad turn in the weather. But the bodies began to stack too quickly. The priest could not keep up with the funerals. The bell of St. Leonard's tolled too often. Children stopped asking questions, and no one dared knock on a neighbor's door after dark. But one door never closed and never caught the sickness. Magda lived in a crooked cottage beyond Holloway Wood. She was old, older than anyone alive could remember. Her house was made of leaning stone and creeping ivy. Her garden overflowed with herbs and roots and things that didn't have names. The villagers had many names for her. Wise woman, midwife, healer, witch. She answered to none of them. She lived alone with a black dog that never barked. It sat beside her like a shadow, always at her heel, and though her hair was silver, her hands never trembled. Her eyes were bright, too bright, some said. She gave tinctures to those who asked. Her cures often worked. She never asked for payment in coin, but asked for strange things instead. A ribbon worn 3 days, a thimble of water from under the bed, a whisper spoken over rosemary. For the charm to hold, she would say, in a voice like the wind through dry leaves. When the sickness came again, it came quickly. And it spared her entirely. While children burned with fever and men died in their sleep, Magda's chimney smoked cheerily every morning. Her dog stood watch, and the herbs in her garden grew greener than ever. People began to talk. Not loudly, not at first, but the kind of whispering that spreads like frost. "She's untouched," said one. "She knew it was coming," said another. "She fed it," said a third. And then Thomas Fletcher, the reeve of the village, lost his wife and son in the space of 4 days. He said nothing at the funeral, but that night he gathered 3 men and went to Magda's cottage with rope and silence. The next morning, the tree was changed. It was an old witch elm that stood near the church green, tall and twisted, with branches like arms. The village used to hold fairs beneath it, not anymore. Magda was gone. Her cottage, when searched, was empty. A pot still boiled over the fire. Her dog was never seen again. But in the early light, the rope still hung from the elm, and on the branch, the bark had cracked open like a mouth. They say she cursed them with her last breath. No one remembers the words, only that it was not a scream. It was laughter. That autumn, the leaves refused to fall. They turned brown, yes, but clung to the branches like dead hands. The wind passed them by. Children stopped playing on the green. Thomas Fletcher's crops failed. His horse broke its leg in the paddock. His barn collapsed in the night for no reason at all. Then he vanished. They found his boots by the mill pond, but not his body. Another man, one of the 3 who walked with him, claimed to see the black dog again, standing beneath the elm, watching. He left the village a week later and never returned. Seasons passed and Bretforton grew quieter. The priest refused to bless the green. The fairs moved to nearby fields. A new tree was planted for May Day dances. And the witch elm remained. The rope still hung there, though no one touched it. It blackened with rain, stiffened with frost, but did not rot. Then, one spring, a stranger arrived. He was a scholar from Oxford, thin and pale, with boots too clean for the lanes. His name was Mr. Percival Hartwell. He stayed at the Fleece Inn and asked odd questions. He was writing a book, he said, something about surviving folklore, superstition in rural England. He had a notebook, a magnifying lens, and an air of polite arrogance. The villagers were kind at first, but as soon as he asked about the tree, doors began to close, faces turned away. Only old Martha Elsmore, who remembered the tale second-hand from her grandmother, agreed to speak. It weren't just the hanging, she said. It were what came after. What came after? Hartwell asked, his pencil twitching. No bird nests in it, she whispered. Not since that night. And sometimes it sings. Hartwell laughed gently, thinking it a poetic exaggeration. He visited the green that evening. The tree stood alone, larger than he expected, its bark warped and ridged like twisted ribs. No other plants grew near it. The grass was sparse. The air was still. In the fork of one high branch, the rope remained, black, frayed, but intact. He made notes, sketched, tapped the bark. It felt warm to the touch despite the spring chill. Something rustled above him. He turned quickly, but nothing moved. He left before sunset. Something in the light bothered him. That night, he wrote in his notebook, curious specimen, witch elm, possibly centuries old, reports of folk avoidance typical for post-trauma sites, rope still intact, no rational explanation for preservation, locals unwilling to discuss. One suggests auditory phenomena, investigate further. He planned to return in the morning to collect a cutting. He never did. The innkeeper knocked on his door after breakfast, no answer. When they broke in, the bed was undisturbed. His coat hung on the peg, his satchel lay open. The window was unlatched, his notebook remained open on the desk. The final line read, "She said not to cut her down." A search party was raised. They combed the fields, searched the wood, called down the wells. Nothing. One boy, curious and disobedient, slipped out at dusk to look at the tree. He came back white-faced and shaking. He said he saw a man hanging there, pale coat, still boots, swaying slightly in a wind that wasn't blowing. He said the man looked down at him and smiled. The tree was never touched. Another plague came and went. The wars rolled through. Electricity came, then telephones, then the internet. But the tree remained. Locals still crossed the road to avoid walking beneath it. Children are told to stay near the inn after dark, and though most of them laugh at the tale, none of them test it. And sometimes, just before dawn, when the air is still and the world is holding its breath, if you listen beneath the branches, very, very closely, you might hear it. Not a voice, not words, just a soft, low humming, like a lullaby with no end. This tale was inspired by a real legend from Bretforton. Whether the witch tree still grows is for you to decide.